Hi, I'm Brian Garish, president of Banfield Pet Hospital, where we provide preventive health care for pets at more than 1,000 hospitals across the US, Puerto Rico, and Mexico. On today's show, I'm going to share with you how my cats help me communicate at scale with all of our associates that creates loyalty in our organization. And also what we're doing to help our leaders deal with the issues of mental health and how we're doing our part to eliminate suicide in the veterinary profession. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to part two of our delicious conversation with Brian Garish. Now, he is the president of Banfield Pet Hospitals. There's over 1,000 pet hospitals across the United States with 19,000 associates. So this is a very successful organization. It's a multi-billion-dollar organization that has grown its revenues by 50% year over year. It's the rate of keeping people loyal is insanely high. We're going to talk about all that. We talked about it a lot in the first half. We talked about veterinarians who go through suicide, mental health. We talked about how his company is helping with debt relief, and how the veterinarians are the people in healthcare who have the largest debt for their studies. So it's, and this company has stepped forward to say, how can we make a difference? And they're even doing things around supporting victims of domestic violence. Very powerful work, very focused on social change, yet incredibly successful. And part of the challenges we've talked about in the beginning was many companies talk about, oh yeah, we care about our people, whatever. We're listening to our people. Are you really? Or they're doing something. Yeah, we gave $10,000 to this, or we sent a check to that, but there's no actual activity around making those differences. This company, and Brian at the helm, has actually been really putting, as I said in the intro to part one, putting his money where his mouth is, putting his action where his mouth is, and the entire company has done that. But what we finished up at the end of part one was that Brian was using social media in a way that is not normally done by leaders. In fact, leaders who are certainly over 35 may not be doing it at all. Many of them don't even go on social media. Brian is using social media to have conversations with the associates and with the clients. So let's start there, Brian. Let's talk about why you decided to do that, because that is incredibly different. And I know we're going to get a lot of pushback from leaders like, well, I'm too busy for Instagram. This guy's obviously got nothing to do.
Well, for me, it really goes back to my top priorities culture. And I hear so many people always talking about what their priorities are. And yet it's that reconciliation of what people are actually experiencing by the leader. Leadership's about having the responsibility to make an impact on people. And it's the greatest gift that I think I've had, is to be fortunate to have this opportunity to impact people's lives. And for me, I think about Instagram and why Instagram. Well, I'll just share a real quick story.
Yeah.
Throughout my career, I always believed in that conversation at scale. So, many years ago, when Instagram or social media didn't exist, I'd have a breakfast meeting with anyone Fridays. So my partner and I, and when back in the pharmacy role, it could be breakfast with Brian and Amy. Every Friday, whoever wants to join. And we'd get so many people coming, and you would just see how powerful it was being able to listen to people and being able to connect, because that actually gives you the insights on what is or isn't happening. So when I fast forward to now, I can go visit a market, have a dinner, and host anyone who in the market who wants to come. Dinner from 6 to 8. It's about 7:45. I'll stand up and tell everyone, hey, thank you for coming. I'll be here all night. I'm going back to a hotel, but I'm here to stay, answer any questions you have. And people wouldn't leave. And they wouldn't leave because they're asking questions about the strategy, or what is it they need for a better work environment, or whatever question they had. Then I'd come back to the office and I'm like, now I don't hear from anyone. Why? Well, how can I connect them? So it really came back to, well, where's the conversation happening? And when I asked that question, of course, what's the business answer? The business answer is, oh, let's have an intranet. Or let's modify the internet because we know that those don't really work. Let's now create a new app, a social app where all the employees or associates can come and join the conversation. And to me, that just didn't feel authentic because you're asking people to come to me or come to us to have the conversation. But we simply said, where's the conversation happening? Because I believe the busiest thing in any organization is the grapevine. How are you connecting with it and using it to your advantage? And so I went out in hospitals and started asking everybody where, if we took a team picture, where can I post this? Where are you on social media? Are you on Twitter? Is it LinkedIn? Is it Instagram? And overwhelmingly, our associates were on Instagram. So it became clear to me that I created my own account and just started to follow some of our associates, but started really to post what is a day in my life, what's important, who am I, but then ways in which we're starting to share company news and doing polls on should we do this or should we not do this. And it became just unbelievable. And Dov, I'll share another quick story with you. Early on, we changed our dress code. So the Banfield dress code used to be just, you had two choices, dark blue or light blue scrubs. I mean, how about those for options? How about that for personalization? So in asking the question,
you can be yourself.
Exactly. And what was so funny about, I appreciate you saying that, because what's so funny is you hear this rhetoric sometimes from people saying one thing and then their employees are experiencing something else.
Absolutely.
And it was like, wait a minute, we always talk about getting to know the person and what is it that our people want, but we're giving them two choices. So all of a sudden someone asked a question of why do we have to wear this, or why can't we wear fun scrubs? And it's okay, well, tell me more. We took a poll. I did a poll on Instagram, took it out to our organization. Overwhelmingly, everyone said they wanted to change it. I made the company change announcement on Instagram. Oh. It spread like wildfire. It was unbelievable how fast this went through the organization and how much engagement it had.
Yeah.
And from that moment, it became clear of, we're not just talking to someone, we're actually having a conversation and we can actually make change.
But this is what is profound, is you went to where the conversation was, rather than being the boss and saying, well, you have to come to us and you have to come and talk to us. And we've made this app so you can talk to us. Right. Who gives a shit? Where I'm on Instagram and I'm looking at my friends' pictures and whatever it is, and this pops up and it's really cool. It's just so brilliant and so simple, but powerful. But I got to ask you, what was the best scrubs? Because there got to be some really cool ones.
The creativity was amazing.
I'm bet.
So it was so cool when we launched this. I had so many people then tagging, the Banfield hashtag. So hashtag Banfield life. So we created a hashtag of what does it mean to live a Banfield life? They were hashtagging their scrubs, and you would see the creativity of people actually designing their own, doing hand paintings and put glitter on it. It's been unbelievable to see people's personalities being showcased on their sleeves. And it's just so powerful. It's so exciting to see.
But this is for me, one of the key points is these people are, so in the work I do, I talk about, if you're going to build a culture is always based in meaning, and meaning is an emotional bond. There has to be an emotional bond. And, what you've done here is you've gone to them, number one, that's great. But on top of that, you've elicited the meaning for them rather than tell them the meaning. You've elicited meaning, and you've elicited meaning at an emotional level that allows personality. And a lot of people go, well, if you do that, you lose professionalism. Talk to us about what I think is that it's my illusion. I think that that's a big fat lie, but people think if you get to, we get out of the uniform and we sort of let things slide over there, that things are going to get a little unprofessional.
It's amazing. Yeah. These self-limiting beliefs that leaders have about, whether it's their own function, their department, or their own personal belief, not willing to test that belief is always a bit crazy for me. And I'm willing to test any belief. Let's test the belief. Let's test the policy to understand, because if people like it and it's better for them, why would we get in their own way then? And the work is happening with our over 19,000 associates. We have about 750 associates in our corporate office. Therefore, the rest are in the hospitals. So if it works for them, why are we getting in the way? Who are we to dictate what should or shouldn't happen? And it's a massive disconnection from reality, in my opinion.
Now, one of the things we were talking about before we were recording is, the pandemic, 2020, 2021 pandemic had devastating effects in all kinds of ways. One of the ways it was very positive was that people went and they went to shelters and they got animals, and a lot of the shelters got emptied. And you were telling me that now people are going back to work. There's another upsurge. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see a few things that have come out of this. So the shelters emptying, it's best news we've heard, and people really connecting even deeper that human animal bond, which is only just greater, and it helps with everything that we've gone through. We're now seeing these questions coming up from our clients of, when I go back to the office, how do I make sure I'm thinking about my pet in a way that's not too disruptive for them? And so I'm just gone now, and then what do I do with my pet? And one thing that's really encouraging is the amount of people that are saying, I now need to find another pet, because when I go back to the office, I have one dog or I have one cat, and I want to keep my dog or cat company. So we're seeing a pretty big insurgence right now on people trying to go back to figure out, how do I get more pets, because my pet needs company now, which just really just strengthens that bond. It's such a fun time to be in this space.
Now, the other thing about the pandemic was that, I did a lot of work. When the pandemic first kicked in, I reached out to every leader I work with privately and in organizations. And I said, you need me more than ever now. Don't think about cutting. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I said, you got to be more human than you've ever been.
Right.
You got to be more connected to your people than you've ever been. How did you guys stay connected? Was that the Instagram thing?
No, Instagram was before, but we just accelerated it.
You accelerated it through that.
When we think about that communication, what I attempt to do is a role model that authenticity, transparency, and compassion on having that conversation. So when the pandemic hit, we didn't know, and we were clear with our people what we knew and what we didn't know. We weren't trying to hide behind what we didn't know. We were just honest.
Right.
And what we did, Dov, was we instituted call trees, and it was a way to say, I remember the first tree, our senior leadership team came together, and we had our huddle and said, here's how we're going to communicate. Here's what all of our associates can expect from us. It's going to be verbal. Of course, we'll do something written, but most people don't have time for that. It's verbal. Let's make sure, and we are tracking eyeballs. We had this conversation in the hospital, or we called our associates to make sure they were aware. And so what we did was, our senior leadership team had a cascade call to all of our direct reports throughout the organization. But if I think about our hospitals, our divisional vice presidents and our veterinary team, then we, from a hierarchical standpoint, our divisionals went to the regionals, our regionals went to the markets went to the hospitals, and every leader in the hospital talked to every single associate. So that happened in the morning. And then what we asked for was, we want to know all your questions. And so then when the hospital, like the practice manager who runs the hospital, talked to all their associates, they gathered all these questions and gave them to their market leader. Their market leader then distilled them into the themes. They gave them to the regional to division, divisional back to us. That happened every day for weeks.
Wow.
And I remember saying, we have all the time in the world to understand and connect with our people, because I'm so thankful that we're making the decision to keep our hospitals open. We're not closing. We're not laying anyone off, because we believe in the human animal bond, and we're going to do what is right to keep our associates safe and working. And what we need to do to keep them safe is provide, yes, sure, the right environment, but answer their questions. And the questions we were getting after, like, say, a first week or so, you started to see that people really cared about me. And then what happened was, the questions were not just work, it was personal. Yeah. And as we all have experienced, the blending of the professional and personal life has just been completely muddied through this.
Absolutely.
And those cascade trees, we had those every day for almost 3 months. And then we went to like an every other day type thing. But it was still about two-way conversation. And then when they came back with the questions to us, our remit was answer the questions and next go. So the next day it was here are all the answers. And it was here's what we're doing, here's what we're not doing, or we don't know yet. We're going to continue to monitor it. And just being transparent about what we did or didn't know and where we didn't have answers, I think this helped us.
Well, as I said, since the pandemic, the employees are leaving the workforce and switching jobs in droves.
Yes.
Many employers are blown away. I mean, there was a survey of, I think, 30,000 global workers showed that 41% of workers were considering quitting or changing professions.
Yeah.
What would you say to a leader right now who is potentially listening to us? I mean, just tell us again about your retention rate. Is it 90 something?
Oh, it's yeah. Well, it's about no, our retention rate's about 85% right now.
Yeah, which is insanely high, right? Insanely high. So as we've got leaders watching us, listening to us, and they're saying, okay, my talent is walking out the door. We had this, we pivoted pretty fast. We did pretty good. We went remote. And now we want to bring people back into the office. And we've put forward this hybrid model, and yet people are still walking away.
Right.
And I mean, I'm hearing that a lot. Let me give them this hybrid model and then they're walking away. I know what I tell them. I'd love to hear what you would say.
Well, I think for us, it really comes down to our culture. And when we look at it, I mean, the question on the retention rate is we measure every single role. And so we don't look at just an aggregate. I want to know every single role and the history of it and why all of a sudden we're seeing a change. I think from us, it's still really that culture. To me, what's happening is you're hearing people wanting to leave the workforce. They are leaving the workforce, and whatever we've saved money for the first time, and now we can take a sabbatical. I asked the question, well, what if that's going to happen to us? What are we doing to create that where people would want to do that? Because again, this is an industry in which people choose to be part of this. So if they leave, we can't say it's not leadership. Too often we know people leave leaders, and we always say that until it's our turnover. Yeah. And it's amazing how there's such lack of personal accountability and responsibility. It's just absolutely baffling to me.
Yeah, these companies are losing their top people because their leaders suck. Oh, we're losing our people? Exactly. Well, clearly the people suck.
It's amazing I would say, like, how you hear that rhetoric, right? Where people say, oh yeah, no, we know people leave leaders, not companies. And yet, but for their situation, they always have a reason on why. And so I have no tolerance for that. Like when we have turnover, we dig into it, whether it's by market, by role, by region or wherever, and say, what is happening here? And the beauty of data gives us just the opportunity to have a conversation. And when I look at our role, like we have our veterinary technicians, which is actually almost right a little better than 85% retention. We've cut that over in half. And then our front front desk may be a little higher, but historically speaking, we've been able to cut that in half. And we start looking at each role and saying, but if this is the number by region, why is there so much variability? And what's the leader doing to truly connect and understand and make that connection? So I think if anyone's experiencing this turnover, it's time to take it personally. How do you finally say, I created this culture that where people are not staying and growing their career with us? I can justify it however I want to, but do I truly say one thing and do my people experience something else? It's an invitation to really get personal about how we want to show up as a leader.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Now I know that, as I said, you're running this multi-billion-dollar organization and doing a fabulous job of it. But that's not how you started.
No.
You didn't pop out of your mom's womb or out of school and go, oh, I'm the CEO of this. So give us a little, I mean, I want people to have a little bit of a backstory here, because this could seem like, oh, this is very high level talking, but it's not. So walk us through a bit, Brian.
Sure, sure. It's really my DNA, and I'm so thankful to have this upbringing when I was 16 and these experiences that have shaped me to who I am. I think before I go further, it's an invitation for all of us to really go back to our past. And how do we have that perspective of where we came from, what we experienced, that fuel and motivation that drove us to where we are, but never forgetting where we came from. Staying grounded is so important. So like for me, 16 years old, I was stocking shelves at Walgreens drugstore, sweeping floors, cashiering, mopping bathrooms, whatever they needed me to do, I did. And I had no idea that was going to change my life. I was 18, so 2 years later, I'm 18. I started to go to college. I dropped out of college. It was 2:30 in the morning. I'll never forget this. Going to bed and sleeping is like my superpower. I like to joke about because I never have a problem sleeping. But one night I couldn't sleep. I'm at the kitchen table, head buried in my hands. I'm crying. I dropped out of college. I'm working. I'm probably making $5.35 an hour. What am I going to do with my life? My mom and I had an amazing conversation. I go to work. I talk to the store manager, and he always like mentored me and took me under his wing. And I finally changed from being an arrogant 18-year-old idiot who wasn't going to listen to someone who started listening and said, if I put the work in, I'm going to see where I can go. And he gave me the opportunity. I became an assistant manager. I became a store manager. And then 5 years later, after becoming a store manager, I saw a culture change. And when I saw the culture change, first I started off with an amazing culture. And now I see a culture where people were not as engaged. And I could see the store managers not as engaged. And, I probably felt a little disengaged as well. And I didn't have my degree. And I realized, oh gosh, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble because I'm dependent on them. They're not dependent on me. So I went back to school full time. I was a store manager, worked full time, went to school full time. I just put everything into it. I majored in philosophy, got my philosophy degree.
Great degree for being unemployed.
So I got my degree, and then the rest is
because you can philosophize about why you're unemployed.
That's exactly right. And so I had the opportunity to join CVS Pharmacy, and then the rest was history of just taking that opportunity to understand my personal philosophy, if you will, on what leadership could mean. And yes, a business is incredibly important. Yes, it's about understanding a P&L. Yeah, it's about all that. But at the end of the day, it's about delivering results. But just as important, if not more important, it's how you take care of people. And I just remember reading all these, statements and books and articles and everything. And you'd always hear people talk about culture or talk about this. Yeah. And I just experienced there's the rhetoric that people say one thing and do something else. And I thought, if there's some truth to this and I can actually live these values, let's see what happens. And I did that, and the rest has been history. And I've been so fortunate to have this opportunity now at Banfield.
The truth is, Brian, as you know, I interview here and speak to hundreds more and work with people all the time who talk about culture. And I'm going to say something to you that I don't often say. I'm really impressed with the accountability to culture, not just you built a great culture, but the accountability to it that you guys do and that you've done and that you have spearheaded is so vitally important. But again, I know I want to keep hammering this for everybody to get, but it's become the way to be most profitable.
Absolutely.
Right. So you've created psychological safety to build a culture. You've gone to where your people are. You listen to them at scale. You speak with them at scale, and you've put it into action. So as we draw towards the end of this particular show, and again, I thank you for your time and your commitment and for the work that you're doing. But as we draw to the end, I would love for you to tell or share with our audience something that a leader can do, no matter where they are. Could be the bottom line leader or top president, CEO, if you could guide us to integrate something that you have shared today, that's something that we could go away and do, preferably in the next 24 hours, maybe quicker, what would that piece of guidance be?
Wow, I think when you think about what's important to you, how are you testing it? So I think it's important for people to, whether it's your core, your personal core values, whether it's what you're saying your strategic direction is for your organization, go test it. Go to those that are doing the work and ask them, what are the priorities of the organization? What is your top priority? And if it's culture, ask them questions about culture to see, does it match what you think you're saying? And there's often this reconciliation of what leaders think's happening versus what is happening. And the final thing I'll say, Dov, is when you don't see it happening, there has to be strong accountability for your leaders, not for the people who are not getting the right experience. It's for the leaders who are not delivering on that. And anytime someone reaches out, I will never, ever feel bad about anyone sharing something that they'll say, oh, I don't want to get so and so in trouble. You're not going to get anyone in trouble. I'm sorry that you had this experience. It comes back to our leaders of why, like in this case, why does this person not feel comfortable to talk to their leader? That's the best question. Are we asking the right question when it comes to a disconnect in culture, in strategy, in direction, or deliverables? Taking that time to really validate and is important, and not enough people actually inspect it.
Not at all. But, again, what I keep hearing from you, and love, by the way, is this creating psychological safety for people.
Yes.
Because I, one of the things I guide my leaders around all the time is, please don't make people report to the person above them.
Right.
Like, make it so they can. Make it so that they know that they'll be listened to, but if they're not listened to, that they don't feel like they're backstabbing by jumping over that.
Absolutely.
That psychological safety to say, this is not right. Okay, let's hear it. That's fabulous. Thank you so much, Brian. That's awesome. Before we go, of course, please tell people where they can find out more about you, about Banfield, about all the resources that you have, and maybe how they could reach out to you or to the organization.
Please. Well, for anything around preventive healthcare for pets, check out banfield.com. And if you want to hear more about me or this conversation, reach out anytime at Brian Garish, LinkedIn or Instagram.
Yeah, fabulous. And of course, we will make sure that we share all of those links with you in the show notes, so you can follow it with Brian, you can follow it with Banfield. And I've been trolling his Instagram a little bit. Some pretty cool stuff on there. So it's actually quite fun. So make sure you go and have a look. And remember that you can hang out with other conscious leaders. You can chat about this episode that you've been listening to, or any other of our episodes inside of our Facebook or LinkedIn groups. Simply go look for the Leadership and Loyalty Podcast, because it doesn't matter how successful you are. If your employees and your customers don't understand what gives your company meaning, you're only working at a fraction of your true capability. To find out how you can hire me, Dov Baron, as a speaker or leadership strategist for yourself or your organization, go to dovbaron.com. That's DOVBARON.com. Because unified actualized meaning is the one single monolithic difference between mediocrity and greatness for all individuals and companies. I want to thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Remember that we really want to hear from you. You can DM us on any of the four major social media platforms. Tell us where you're listening in, what app you're listening through, or is it Google or Apple or whatever it is, and tell us what's been your favorite episode and why, and maybe you'll win a prize, because I'm going to offer you a prize that's worth about $1,500 to one person. Make sure that you're that person. Tell us where you're listening. I'm Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deepest meaning to reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. So stay curious, my friend. Stay curious. I'm out.